This is our home page. So from this page, both managers and vendors can log in here. Their accounts look similar. I'm going to go ahead and log in as my manager test account. I do this many times throughout the day for my own market. So here's my market here. If I have several active markets, they'll all be shown on the dashboard. The organization tab is basic information about your organization. It would be your logo here with your website, link, address. These things populate on the vendor side as well. Everything starts with initially creating a vendor application. So when you activate an account, the first thing we do is send you a tutorial on how to start a market application. Use this button here to start a market application. If you've been with us for a season, your old market will populate up so you can actually create a market based on an old application. So there's no reason to reinvent the wheel year to year to year. I have one already created, so I'm just going to click on my market application. Now, the way Manage My Market works is vendors go online and they create what we call a global profile. They then use that global profile to apply to your market or other markets in the area. They can log in at any time and update. The first time they create their profile, it could take 20 or 30 minutes, depending on the size of their business and the amount of detail they provide. If we're talking about a small, bakery, cookie producer, this might only take them 10 or 15 minutes. If we're working with, if it's a larger farm and they have a lot of products and they're providing a lot of detail, then it could take up to 30 minutes to create that initial profile. But they never have to do it again. That profile is always housed on the cloud. So once that initial profile is created, they use that to apply to your market application year after year after year. Now, the global profile is very comprehensive. It includes information about their business structure, their number of employees, interns. If they're a farm, it's going to ask them a lot of information about their acreage, their pest control methods, whether they use GMO, whether they're certified organic. They're prompted to input things such as their mailing address, their physical address, and add both a primary contact, an emergency contact, and staff, so that you're able to communicate with the people that are not only filling out the application, but those staff members who are actually coming to the market. Because the global profile is so comprehensive, this allows your market-specific application to be very streamlined and straightforward. This is what it looks like. You have an area to give a message to your prospective vendors. So this is what they see before they apply to your market. Here's where you want to give your mission statement. You want to talk about what you're looking for and really also what you're not looking for, because this is sort of the first stop along the way in the application process. Second, you're going to create a message that they see after they apply to their market, your market. This will both populate on their screen and it will be emailed to them. Here's where you input your market dates. You simply select the dates from the calendar, indicate when you're ready to start taking applications and when you want your registration to close. Here's where you're going to set your vendor types. Vendor types are used throughout the system. You probably already have some of these established. I've given some examples here. You may have similar or different names. Crafters, musicians, farmers, hot food people, that sort of thing. You create everything here by adding your own, fully customizable. Same with stall fees. Standard is a 10 by 10, but you may have some unique sizes. Again, you create your own. Market fees are your payment plans. Do you have an option for the vendor to pay up front for the whole season? Do you collect it weekly? Do you charge for a market in advance? Whatever your different payment structures are, you would list those here. You may only have one, and that's okay. If you'd like to offer discounts, there's a section for that. Application fee if you charge one. And then any additional questions. So if there's anything that's not covered in that global profile or already in this streamlined application, you can ask these here, and you can make them vendor specific. So you can tell it, out of my vendor types that I've assigned, only ask my ag people this type of question. So you can really make it specific to the person who's applying to your market. Statements is anything that you'd like to get your vendors to agree to. And then there's its own little spot for your legal statement. So this might be your hold harmless agreement, another link back to your vendor handbook of governing rules. After a vendor fills out the application, when you're logged in as a vendor, there's a box down here that they check and they sign, and that's their, legal digital signature. So once a vendor has filled out your application, the system will take that global profile and your simplified application form, and it will merge the two together. And this is what it looks like. This is my fictitious farm, Staci's farm. As you can see, I've uploaded a logo. This is pulling from my global profile. Contact information, social media links, if I have those. We have a space for Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram. This is really important to collect up front because as managers, we do a lot of promoting of our vendors on our own Facebook and Instagram pages. Also, when someone applies to your market, there's a lot you can learn about them by checking out their social media. So they are prompted to upload those links, but they're not required because many vendors don't have them. I can see information on her business, again, pulling from that global profile that was created. I can see how long she's been in business, number of employees, like I mentioned earlier. And because this is a farm, it's prompted her to answer questions about her land. Here are those contacts I mentioned and addresses, even a link to the property. Now I want to see what she's answered in my application. So I'm going to click on the application tab here, and I can see she's a farmer. She wants a 10 by 10 stall. She's going to take my weekly payment plan, and she's answered my questions. I can see her wish list of dates, but you have total control over these dates. So really this is a wish list. This is their initial request. So I have the ability to approve this farm's overall status. I can say, I want to work with Staci's farm. I'm going to approve them for my organization, but maybe I'm full on this date. So I'm going to go ahead and decline that individual date. You can pick and choose from the list, or you can approve them all in one fell swoop. Here I can see her products, again, pulling from the global profile. We do ask vendors through that process of setting up that account to upload all of their products. It's nice also when they add photos, and they are asked what months they carry those products. So if you have a candle person, this is going to be a year-round type of thing, but if it's a farm, it could be quite seasonal. This is important because we also offer bells and whistles for your website, like a product search feature, and it pulls from this data here. Here they're able to upload anything additional. Here from the vendor tab, I can see any activity on the account if I've sent invoices. And here's general activity. So this will actually go all the way back. Anytime anything's done on the account, it'll stamp it here. So I can go all the way back and see when they applied. Here's their licenses. So this is one of the reasons that even before I worked for Manage My Market, I was such a big proponent of this platform. Keeping track of vendor licenses can be so daunting. And I know, at least here in California, I would go to roundtables and I would meet other managers that had these complicated spreadsheets with lots of different colors highlight, because the insurance expires, at one time, and then the organic certificate expires at another time. And all the licenses are so different for the diverse sort of vendors that we invite into our marketplaces. And so keeping track of all of those can be really daunting. And if you do it only once a year, oftentimes those licenses could be expired even a month later. So with this licensing tool, they scan and upload their licenses, or you can take pictures of paperwork actually at market. Here in California, we have something called a Certified Producer Certificate Program. So as you can see, this was actually taken at market, sitting on a pile of lemons. So I mean, this is really what it would kind of look like, because sometimes we do end up scanning for our vendors. They put in the expiration date here. So what's super great is that they'll get notifications when this is getting ready to expire, prompting them to upload the new license. So this sort of helps you share the task of compliance with your vendors. As a manager, you get a weekly notice. You have the choice now between a weekly notice or a monthly notice. I take the monthly notice, and it will tell you what's getting ready to expire and what has already expired. So you can kind of follow up. These licenses also, you can make specific to your vendor type. So for example, someone who's a farmer probably wouldn't need a kitchen permit. So you don't have to assign that license to that vendor type. Here I can see staff that's been assigned to my market. So I know any of these people might be expected at my market. Here's the note section. So I can add a note about a vendor. This is hidden from the vendors. It's only viewable to the manager. So you can feel free to write something like vendor arrived late, something like that. Any other kind of note that you want you or your other staff to see. Manage My Market offers full integrated accounting for your vendor invoicing. So we use two different credit card processors in our accounting platform. We use PayPal and we also use Square, but we use them differently and they're not interchangeable. So for our basic invoice system, you can integrate with PayPal. I can pull up a market, pick a vendor, and create an invoice. This is at its very basic level. Now you pre-populate all of your vendor, any market fees in our settings area. So when I add a line item, my specific fees will automatically pop up. I can tie that to a market date, a market specific date or not, and I can add as many fees or line items as I need to. I simply hit create, email, and it will email it to the vendor. If I have PayPal integrated, there would be a link down here. They simply click the link, pay online, and Manage My Market is automatically updated. Both you and the vendor get a receipt. You don't have to do them one at a time. We have a bulk invoicing feature, which I'm a little more comfortable with, and I use it so often that I actually use this even if I'm just sending one email or one invoice. But I can pick as many vendors as I want. I can even make these entry types different. I simply hit submit invoices, approve an email. It'll ask me if I want to send them. I say yes, and they're sent. And the invoice is automatically created and attached to the vendor file if you want to go back and see it later. Very, very quick. But my favorite accounting feature is when I actually ask Manage My Market to bill. I'm currently using it at my markets because of COVID, and it's called auto charges. So my vendors now put a card on file when they apply, and I can use that card to charge things like membership fees, permit fees, and since COVID, stall fees. So I'm no longer collecting stall fees at the market. You go here into auto charges, you can select your market and you can filter your vendor list. You can just pick from your vendor list or you can filter this down. I can say, show me all my approved vendors. Or maybe I'm using this to charge my application fees. So I want to see all my received. And we're going to filter by any vendor type. I only have one. I simply say charge now. I can tie it to a market date or not. And I can give the invoice a date, usually of the same day. And I hit submit auto charges. It will automatically charge the card. And if this box over here is remain checked, it will send them a receipt. Now, if a card fails, and they do, I've experienced this, cards expire, or maybe there's even non-sufficient funds. You don't have to keep track of these. It'll throw it into the pending area anytime it fails, and you can come back, hit the checkbox, hit charge again, and it'll try the card again. There's also a quick reference ledger. So I can click on a ledger here and see for my whole organization who owes money and maybe who has a credit balance or a zero balance. So anyone in red is someone who owes you money. For markets that collect sales information, we have a sales form where you can input the sales information, and actually your vendors can report their sales by logging into Manage My Market as well. We have some markets that do this very efficiently, where their vendors are trained to go online and enter their sales. This is what the sales sheet looks like. It's a little bit big because I have my screen enlarged, so it's going down onto a second line. If I shrink this up, you'll see it kind of looks like this, but now I know it's probably a little bit small for you to look at. So I'm going to go back to enlarging it. You can see here that I can edit this, and I can go in and edit their sales, so I can add that in. I can also keep track of their tokens. And we have reports you can run on this data as well. So you can run reports on lots of sales reports. We have about 5 or 6 different sales reports, and we also have a token report. So that is really helpful when you're running your various, Snap match programs, or just Snap for that matter, for those grant reporting purposes. We've really expanded our market day tool this season, and I'm really excited to show you guys this because this is an on-site tool. So you have your iPad or even phone on site, and your market manager can check out your vendors. So this is meant to replace the notebook, right? Every market manager has that notebook at the information booth where you're tracking who was there, what money was collected. You can actually do this right into an iPad or tablet, and all the data will be there in Manage My Market to run varying reports. So it's meant to be used very quickly. So the market manager pulls up their market, run several. You pull up your market day, you select your vendor, and as you check people out, it will tell you who's been checked out already and who hasn't. So I can see Staci's Farm hasn't yet been checked out. And what's nifty about this is that it gives me some information. As the market manager, I'm empowered. Like, I can see that this is a person who's on a percentage of sale type plan. I can see that they have a balance due, so that might initiate a conversation on site. But really what I'm here to do is to record their attendance, any charges, sales if I collect that data, and tokens. So instead of doing this on the sales sheet later on, I can do this right on site. So Staci's Farm was present that day, so I'm going to leave that there. Her sales, let's say, were $525, and maybe I charged on a percentage of sale. So it'll calculate that automatically. So if you have in settings it set up for your vendors to be on a percentage of sale, it'll do that calculation for you, or you can simply just add a daily fee flat rate if you're a flat rate type market. And you have the flexibility to make some vendors flat rate and some vendors percentage of sale. There's really a lot you can do in settings as far as distinguishing between your vendor types. So this vendor owes the market $50, and perhaps they're paying some of that in Snap. I can create a payment with the tokens they turned in, and it'll tell me what's left owed. I just plug that in, hit submit, and I can opt to print a receipt from a small printer on site, or I can opt to email the vendor the receipt. I'm encouraging my market managers to go paperless and really lean towards the email. And then I just choose another vendor and start over. Now, maybe you're a market that likes to keep the tokens separate. That's fine. Same scenario. We'll even do the same amount. I'm going to create a payment, a token payment. Now here, because I don't want my tokens mixed up with my stall fees, I'm going to add a refund. I'm refunding that token on site. So now you can see $50 is still owed, and I can collect that in cash. Now when I run my report, my end of day report, it's called a market day checkout report, it'll keep all of my tokens separated so that if you're counting cash separately, you can account for that. Now maybe there's a scenario where you're not reimbursing on site. We have markets that do a large amount of script and they're not reimbursing on site. So we're going to delete the refund. We're just going to collect the token. We're going to add the $50 cash payment because they're still going to pay the stall fee. And now they're going to have what's called an unassigned credit. That unassigned credit will remain on their account and can build up week to week to week for a check to be cut later if that's how you reimburse your script programs. So the market manager just goes through this checkout process until everyone is checked out, and then at the end of the day or the next day, they can print a market day checkout report. It has all the data included for the tokens, anything that was, and any money that was collected. All those reports I mentioned can be found here in reports. We have organization-wide reports, market-specific reports, vendor-specific reports, often this is attendance related, accounting reports, which also include a host of revenue reports and sales reports. And we even have some state-specific reports because Washington and California have some very specific state-type reports, so we've built that into Manage My Market. In California, we run a quarterly CDFA report, and Manage My Market will run that. So if there are things that TAFM feels that are specific to Tennessee, we can definitely build a report and would be housed here under state-specific reports if there's something that you're looking for. The stall assignments tool, another function for your market manager. This is where they really start planning their day-to-day. So this was usually done at the beginning of the season, but then also adjusted sometimes weekly. You can populate a vendor by clicking on one stall, or you can populate all the stalls in a row. You can even assign alternates. So you can see here this vendor was crossed out and Staci's Farm was brought in as an alternate. Now this stall assignments tool talks to a map that we can make live on your website. So you can have an interactive map for your website that your vendors can then click on stalls and see what vendor's going to be there that day. For your customers, actually for your vendors too. So your vendors can go on your website and see where they're assigned, but also mostly it's for customers. They can come to your website and see who's going to be there because this updates in real time. So it will show what's true for the next upcoming day, and it pulls from this. So as you make changes here, your map on your website is automatically updated. So no need to update in two different places. There's a document repository. So if there's anything here that you want your vendors to have, viewable access to, maybe you don't publish your market map on your website. Maybe you want to keep that internal. You can house that here just for your vendors. This is also a great place for your vendor handbook or governing rules. Bulk email. So now more than ever, communicating with your vendors is so important. I feel personally like I've been over communicating with my vendors this year. What's great about this tool is you can really drill down to your audience. So I can come to this bulk email tool and I can pull right from my database based on a specific market. But I can also choose my audience by vendor application status. So, I'm kind of getting to that time of the year where I'm going to be emailing people on my wait list, letting them know the application's open for the next season. So maybe I just want this email to go to them. But most often you're emailing your approved vendors. And you can also filter by vendor type. So maybe this message is only pertinent to farmers. I'm just going to select any. You can tie it to a market date so that this message will only go to the people who are scheduled for that specific market date. Choose my vendors. I can choose to send to their alternate email addresses and then also to vendor staff. I click next, and your logo will pre-populate here. You draft your message. Hit next again. I can attach a file. I can copy myself or other staff and hit send. It will give you a history of the emails that have been sent, and it will show you if they've been opened or read. That kind of depends on the vendor's email settings, but the data is there. The email log is not only a log of the history of emails you've sent, but any notification. So this could be Any automatic notifications like licensing notifications that went out to the vendors. Here in the log, you have the opportunity to view the details of that email and or resend it. I already showed you licensing. This is kind of like an overall part of the licensing. So the licensing, you can see it in the vendor file, but you can also come here and actually run a report. You can say, show me just the county health permits for this market. And this is where you can say, show me the ones that are missing, expired, or current. As I've said throughout the demo, everything is fully customizable in settings, so we do have a separate tutorial we send you just for this. So the first step is creating that market application. The second step is fine-tuning everything the way you want it here in settings. This is where you're going to pick how you want to get your if you want to get your notifications, how you want to handle vendor requested date statuses. Do you want them to all to default to approved, or do you want to leave them not as approved? This is the notification opt-in, opt-out tab. This is where you integrate PayPal. Here you can set up your invoicing just the way you like it. Here's where you address your application fees. So you can set this up to manually, create an invoice for application fees or to automatically, so that every time someone applies to your market, they're automatically sent an invoice for the due application fee. Entry types is just our language for fees. So this is where you set those up. Any fees you have, parking fees, electricity fees, permit fees, and of course, stall fees. And fee types, this is what I mentioned earlier when I was discussing the market day tool, where you can set up, a flat rate, a percentage of gross. You have the option to do both, and you have the option to do a higher flat rate or percent, or put a vendor on a fee schedule. You can customize these by your market, and you can also customize these by vendor type. Payment tokens, this is where you put in whatever kind of payment tokens you take. These are just some examples. And here's where you set up your Square for auto charges. You can make it so that all applicants have to sign up with a card on file when they apply, or you can make that optional. And here you'll find some additional tutorials. So we charge $15 per approved vendor per season. So you're never charged for the vendors that are on your wait list or who you decline, just for people who participate for one or more market dates. And we don't charge you as you go. You really are our client. We work with you. What happens is about a month or two into your season, our accounting person will do an audit of your account and establish how many vendors you have in your market and send you a bill for that amount. And then if you add vendors throughout the season, you might get a supplemental bill at the end. And I'll just end by saying that I'm available if anyone, markets are very, unique. And so it's hard to cover everything in a, broad demo. I just wanted to show you guys kind of the basics of each of the features. But I'm more than happy to schedule a one-on-one demo, and we can do that via a screen share. Usually it takes about 30 to 40 minutes, and that's where we really drill down to your specific needs, and we can really dive into the accounting piece to create a plan that's going to work best for you. So I'm available to do that. I take appointments throughout the week, except for Fridays. And if you are interested in setting up a personalized demo, please shoot me an email.